to point it. There we go. Okay, to the next slide. Okay, hi everyone. On this very warm, lovely day in the UK. I would just like to introduce Caroline and Jeff, both from the University of Leeds, who are going to talk to us today about evaluating in-sessional support from the student perspective. They've both got extensive experience in in-sessional provision, Caroline in the School of Design and Jeff in the School of Performances and Cultural Industries, and previously in the School of Mechanical Engineering. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to them. And mute myself.
Thank you, Jenna. Can I just check, is my screen sharing?
That's clear for me, Caroline.
Perfect.
Yeah, sure for all of us. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So I'd just like to start, please, by saying thank you very much to Jenna and to Deek and the committee for giving us this opportunity to share our findings and for rescheduling the event. What we're planning today is just to talk about the findings from our 2 scholarship projects. We're not planning on having breakout rooms because it's very warm. If you're like us, most of us are quite busy teaching in pre-sessional at the moment, can't even get the right word. So we're just going to have our presentation followed by Q&A, if that's okay. And I'm going to hand over to Jeff to introduce the projects.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Can you all hear me fine?
Yep.
Loud and clear, Jeff. Yep.
Right, thank you. So we are here to talk about, like Caroline said, 2 separate projects which we did in the School of Design and in the School of Education, in which we wanted to find out the sort of impact or perceived value that in-sessional EAP has on student success and student sense of belonging, however way you might want to frame success or belonging. And just to give you kind of like the overarching argument or the overarching approach which we're going to take, we are going to talk about the methodology, of course, as we go along, but I just wanted you to have an idea of where we're coming from, in the sense that we used student voices. So what we did is we used a narrative approach to understanding impact by using student voices as a methodological construct that kind of points towards the social context in which students live, learn, and work. And what we're going to do is, in understanding this voice, we dwelt on how student narratives kind of recreated the in-sessional space. And in recreating this space, what is it they said they value in that space, as well as what is it they said was happening in this space, which was of value to them. And in doing this, we did not limit our focus only to what you might want to call academic success or academic progression. We took a whole person approach. So that's kind of a bit of a background of what we did. Next slide, Caroline.
Sorry, it won't move. What's it? There we are. Oh, sorry, I missed one. There we are.
Right. So just providing a little bit of a context with regards to what are called the 5 pillars of EAP, in as far as the way EAP is approached here at Leeds. I'm going to talk about 3, and Caroline is going to talk about the other 2. One of the pillars of EAP here at the University of Leeds is the idea of context. And under context, we do take an intercultural approach. We do understand that within EAP work, it involves a coming together of 2 subjectivities, if you like. The students bring a certain sense of subjectivity to knowledge construction and language, and in so doing, they also encounter a different subjectivity in the disciplines of their study. So one of the pillars of EAP work at Leeds is context sensitivity. The other one is challenge, in the sense that EAP at Leeds is designed not just for what might be called international students, but it's designed for all, including home students. And I think in the data which we're going to talk about later on, Caroline is going to draw part of our data from a home student. So the second pillar of EAP here at Leeds is that of challenge. The third pillar, which I'm going to talk about, is co-construction. which is perhaps something all of us are familiar with. And under core construction, we develop our curricula, we develop our approaches to in-sessional EAP at Leeds on the understanding that the students, as well as our content counterparts, are important contributors to what happens in the EAP space. So we do work in collaboration with them, and collaboration is something which Caroline is going to talk about next.
So collaboration we took as the EAP specialists working in the disciplines, learning from our colleagues in the different schools, hopefully sharing our expertise with them. And for me, developing my disciplinary expertise, my disciplinary knowledge, so that I'm more effective in the classroom. We also looked at confidence, the other pillar. And for me, that's students taking ownership of their learning and developing their agency as the academic year goes on.
And this brings us nicely to kind of a bit of a background to the in-sessional impact project, which we did. We operated on the understanding that, according to Tibbetts and Chapman 2023, when we think of in-sessional EAP, we're talking about a field that is still developing, and then not much is known about the in-sessional arm of EAP, or the subfield of EAP called in-sessional. And Tibbetts and Chapman go on to argue that one of the ways in which we can raise the profile of in-sessional EAP is by understanding the sort of impact this embedded provision has on student learning. And this was part of the inspiration that kind of drove us to do what we did, not just to understand what is going on in the in-sessional space, but then at the back of our minds was this ethical responsibility which we felt we have towards the EAP field to shed more light on what is happening in the in-sessional space. And again, as we were thinking about this, one of the things that kind of drove us to understand this is the understanding that in EAP classes, what we equip our students with is portable resources. So EAP, excuse me, by its very definition, presupposes transfer. What the students learn in our classes, they have to apply elsewhere. But then we were operating on the understanding that we cannot just assume that the skills and the literacies they learn in our classes is going to be transferable to their disciplinary practices. Hence the need for us to understand what exactly is going on in our classes and how is that impacting the way students are developing in their chosen field. Plus, there is this growing need in higher education, part of it, of course, being driven by neoliberal perspectives, that those of us in EAP, excuse me, need to evidence the worthiness of what we're doing. So these are the sort of thinking that kind of drove us to say we need to understand what is going on in our classes. We can't just take it for granted that what we are teaching is having the desired impact on what students are doing. Plus, there's a need for us to showcase this as a way of raising the profile of in-sessional EAP.
So that leads us to our next slide, which is about the scholarship project that we've undertaken at Leeds and how we've applied this principle in practice. What I think is the particular value of this project is that there's no one size fits all. So the different colleagues have taken different approaches according to their preferences or according to the schools where they work. And it's an umbrella project. We had an umbrella ethics approval. So we've got the different researchers looking at the question from different angles with different methodologies. And that's just to highlight 2 or 3, but there are a lot more on our website if you are interested in finding out more. This is the research context. So as Jenna said, I work in the School of Design, and Jeff has worked or has been a colleague, is a colleague, sorry, to the School of Education where that project was undertaken. Again, we don't have a one-size-fits-all approach to Insessional. I think probably for historical reasons, things have been set up differently according to the academic lead and according to the school. And this continues to change and to be shaped by the Insessional lead and the Language Centre and the colleagues in the school. So it's an exciting space to work in. We were thinking about ethics and the question of if the researcher is the tutor to the students, does this have an impact? Is it something we should be aware of? And definitely it is something to be aware of. But I found that it didn't affect the output, the outcomes on one level, because I wasn't marking the students' work. And the students had graduated by the time I interviewed them. I'm still aware that the students may have had this impression of wanting to give me the answer they thought I wanted, not wishing to offend perhaps. But overall, I still think the students seemed to be honest and open in their reflections. What about you, Jeff?